you tell what you used?
I used polystyrene, paper, and some boxes and some of old Daddy's things, but there were some batteries and I thought they would be good, but they weren't because I thought it could work as electric one, going all up.
5-year-old Christopher's language is typical of many children in the early years of school life. He has a vocabulary of several thousand words and a grasp of grammatical rules. He can use this knowledge for a variety of purposes, like answering questions and giving explanations. How did he develop these skills? And where does he go from here?
Beautiful. You've been very, very busy. Put it safely on the table and then it doesn't get squashed. Thank you, Christopher.
You're so busy, you are.
Language skills begin to develop in some of the earliest exchanges with parents. Detailed analysis of sequences like this has shown that the mother closely watches the baby and builds on the responses she sees.
You're dripping all over me, sweetheart.
It's clear that both mother and child are enjoying these exchanges. How important are they for language development?
Thirsty girl.
Catherine Pereira is a linguist at Manchester University with a particular interest in the development of language.
Probably the most important influence on young children when they begin to acquire their language is the interaction that they have with the adult caregivers around them. So if we watch a young baby, for example, sitting on mother's lap, we can see the pleasure that both of them gain from this interaction. The eye contact between them, the baby will gurgle, for example. The mother probably copies those gurgles or maybe copies the mouth shapes and the expression on the baby's face. They even begin in a very rudimentary way to take turns.
Where's Peter?
Turn-taking games like peekaboo are widely found in Western culture. They're thought to give children valuable experience of being involved in an exchange which has many of the characteristics of conversation. Each person's turn depends on the preceding turn, and there's a shared understanding of the direction and purpose of the game.
Children have to be able to work out from the world around them what's going on, and so anything that contributes to regularities of meaning, anything that helps them to say, oh, I've seen that event before, and it had this word associated with it, is tremendously important. And of course that's the case in the huge variety of contexts in which children grow up. There's a tremendous amount of sort of structuring of their environment. I mean, in the kinds of societies we tend to be used to, it'll be things like give and take games with the mother, where the mother says peep-o and pops up, and the child starts to learn that it too can say peep-o and get into a kind of rhythmic pattern, so it starts to attach the word. But it's not just games. I'm sure that most parents say exactly the same thing every morning when they go in to say good morning to their babies. Hello, or hiya, beautiful, or something. And often you see children starting to do that back. They don't necessarily know that it's a greeting or this particular part of language, but they know that that's what you say in that situation, and that's a big start.
Da 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 da.
Da 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 da
Da da da da da.
In the first year of life, infants play with sounds. Parents respond very positively to this play and interpret it as an attempt to make words. Whether a word is intended by the child is not clear, but it's surely valuable practice at the control needed to make the sounds of a language.
Look what he's doing. What's he doing?
Bigger one. And a big.
Over the next 2 years, infants experiment with these sounds and rapidly build on their experiences.
He's making a mess.
What's this?
By the age of 2.5, Jonathan has begun to develop his vocabulary and to join words together, although only in 2s and 3s at first. He can also use his words to be more specific in making his wishes known. He can ask and answer questions and use language as a means of engaging his parents in an interaction.
You're the monster, isn't it?
What's this?
That's his eyes.
Eyes. What's this?
What's this?
2 eyes.
2 eyes.
With astonishing speed, children gain access to the language system they're born into. They've taken some control over the sound system. They can produce a range of recognizable words, combine words into short sentences, and they can use these skills to make their language work for them. By the time children reach school age, they appear to be competent users of the language. What more needs to be done? Is language development from now on just more of the same, or are there other skills to be learnt? One way of observing development is to compare the language of children at different ages.
Come on, straighten up. Come on.
We showed a video of a Postman Pat story to individual children. Some were about 8 years old, while others were about 5.
I think we're stuck.
Once the children had seen the video, they were asked to recount the story to some of their classmates.
Hello, Peter. Can you tow me out, please? My van's stuck in the mud. Easy.
Since all the children saw the same film, it's possible to compare their accounts directly and identify differences between the age groups.
Postman Pat was in his van and he was driving along and he didn't see the jam and he drove into it. He did. So, Fred Glenn came along in his tractor and tugged out with the rope. No, not Fred Glenn, it wasn't. It was you. It wasn't. It was. It was like somebody else.
He went on his way, and then he met Ted, and Ted said some of the sheep had run out of the field, and he asked him if he could help him catch the sheep. A bull came, and they jumped over a wall, and Ted fell over and hurt his ankle. So Pat went into the village and got the doctor.
The way that the children recount the story can tell us a great deal about how their language skills have developed.
When children retell a story that they've heard, we can notice a number of different aspects of how they do it. They may remember the language verbatim, or they may re-express it in their own words. And of course, if they do that, it must mean that they have understood the story as they heard it. So that's important. We can make some assessment of their comprehension of the story. We can also see which of the details have been salient to them, and we can see how far they've been able to put the details of the story, the features of the story, together to make a coherent whole.
Now what are we going to do? You can't sit here till it gets better.
So when younger children attempt to tell the story, their narrative often lacks the structure and sequence of the original. They may describe just a few particularly noticeable events in the story, often without explanatory links.
There lives a postman Pat in the clover field with the sheep, and they chased them out of the clover field, and I can remember another pot, and there was a tractor, and Peter Fogg had to come and get Pat out of the mud, and then Ted Glenn broke his leg, and the sheep went into the clover field, and if they ate too much clover, they would be poorly. And
the older children will give a more complete account of the story, and they will also connect the various parts together, using words like so, then, until, and because.
And it got out. Then he went away, Postman Pat, and he kept on going until he saw Ted, and he broke his ankle somehow, and because he jumped over the wall and his ankle broke. So Postman called the doctor, and he put a bandage on. And Postman.
Another significant feature of the narratives is the way children introduce new characters to their audience.
It's not easy for them to put themselves in the mind of their listener. So they tend to assume that the listener knows as much as they do, and therefore they either take things for granted and don't give all the detail that we need in order to understand the story properly, or they talk about features in the story, characters in the story perhaps, as if we already know who they are. And it's very noticeable in the use of words like and the. So a young child will say, the farmer, for example, when we didn't know there was a farmer there, whereas an older child will say, there was a farmer, and then show in that way that he realises we haven't met the farmer before.
Some fool's left a gate open. I bet it's those campers.
At this point, the campers are new to the story. Philip introduces them as if we've already met them.
The campers left the gates open and the sheep went out. And when
Olivia's mention of some campers shows that she realises that we haven't met them yet.
he saw Ted, and Ted said that some campers had left a gate open.